Well, I bet it is. And the name sounds familiar. Keep in mind, our list is 200 entries on our list. The membership list that gets mailed out.
All right.
So if things show up, I would expect so. Once in a while, somebody say, "Damn, I haven't been here in years. I better see what's going on." Let's hope so. It's overpowering sometimes. Yeah, Herbie, I got theory gates. They get to be overpowering sometimes, and I haven't changed my program. Did I show you what? Now I can program these things. Yeah, as long as I'm not started yet, I'll show you. Oh, no. Okay. We need to like reconcile, we need to. Bluetooth. On. Okay, so. I have all around general hearing, like what's going on now, but if I need more speech clarity, it changes the frequency response. Correct. This one, if I want to listen to music. This one is for a really noisy environment. This one, it's in an outbird. I could hear birds from 100 yards away. They'll drive you crazy. About a year and a half. Yeah, past it. 1,300 up there. That's it. Oh, it's, I'm kidding. How much are hearing aids? Anywhere from 3,000 to 7,000. These are, any, yeah, unfortunately. But, and then of course you can change settings right to left. You can change the curve the way you want it. So it is. It's really great. So anyway, okay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the folks on Zoom as well. You have any new listeners tonight? Yeah, hi, my name's Dan again. You're gonna put it on, but they would. Yeah, they are. Welcome. If you want information, come see you and have a lot of information. Sure.
All right, I know, I'll tell you. So you moved it.
Yeah.
Well, perfect.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself. One more guest.
Yeah.
My granddaughter is here with me. She's a photographer and training.
Hey,
What's your name?
Camille.
Camille, welcome Camille. Yes. Announcements. Brookfield Open Space Foundation is having their annual nature fest at the Mexico Farm on August 16th from 9 AM to noon. It's free. Gary, Carl, and myself will be there. We're gonna have a table and giving out goodies and telling people about the club. So if you're around, come say hi, come visit.
take our picture.
There'll be lots of other groups there. Forgetting them all gonna be there, a bunch of different open space related groups and related groups as well. Okay, next, we wanted to see who might be interested in a club outing to the White Sands National Park in New Mexico. And one of our members, Dwight, who's on Zoom, lives near White Sands, and he has offered to arrange for a nighttime permit to get into the park for nighttime photography. You need a special permit to get in there at night. And so we wanted to just get a general feel for who wants to go, and it would be next year, next spring or summer. There would be a fee for the permit, of course, there's travel costs and lodging costs. So we just wanted to put it out there, see who's interested. I was gonna have Dwight talk about it for a bit. Is Dwight online?
You still with us there, Dwight?
Sure am. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine, sir.
All right. All right. Well, I had a little trouble hearing Phil there, but I think he's turning it over to me for a second. So a lot of the guys I recognize, some of the newer members don't know you. I've been down here in New Mexico since 2019. And I live about 10, 15 minutes away from White Sands National Park. I just updated my background picture to show one of the shots that I took over there. I'd love to have people come down, do a little photo excursion over there. I've done some research. The park hours are from 7 a.m. to 1 hour after sunset. They do offer permits, and basically the permit is going to pay for ranger or rangers to stay in the park, and the latest you can stay is up till midnight. Earliest you can get in is 5 a.m. So I have a photographer friend that lives just up the street, and she did the 5 a.m. and it was $50 to get her in to photograph at sunrise. So I don't know what the cost is for the evening to stay until midnight, but looking at Stellarium and Milky Way, I think probably August would be the best, because by about 10:30 to 11, the Milky Way is almost vertical and due south, which would line up perfectly for the park. That's the good news. The bad news is in August, we're in the middle of monsoon season and have no idea what the clouds are going to do. Today it's cloudy, but it's supposed to clear up at sunset and be clear through the night, and then cloudy again tomorrow. So I think primarily we'd just like to get an idea of the interest in coming down. I'd love to host it. We could do a daytime shoot. We could do a sunrise shoot. We could definitely try for the Milky Way up to midnight one night. But I think at this point, getting the overall club interest and tentatively August, we could do it earlier, but if you go into like June and July, the real Milky Way optimum to get it vertical in the sky is gonna be closer to midnight or even after. And from what I've found out, midnight's the latest we can stay. Any questions?
When do you need to know? When do we need to get your count?
From what it said on the permit, at least a 30-day notice, so I don't think, if we could go, 45 days or 60 days, I think that would be optimum, but, we could cut it close and, I imagine the cost will vary depending on how many they are, but we just split that up equally would work for me.
Okay, so you don't need to have a fairly firm count until, say, April?
Yeah, I would think so. If we had, sometime spring, March, April,
Okay,
if we had a count by then, I think that'd be ideal.
Okay. Well, then. For sure, I think we'd be generally interested in a white sand something.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You've got a baker's dozen.
Well, and I told Phil, my son is no longer in the industry, but he's a trained French chef. And I told him that a meal would be included, prepared by my son. A dozen people, we're gonna, I've got to work on him a little bit for that, but we could do that. We could have, we could easily do a dozen. We do poker. We love to play poker, and we had 25 people here for poker a couple months ago. So a dozen people, piece of cake.
All right, sounds like a plan.
I'll put out a follow-up email for all the members, and then you just respond to whoever wants to go. We'll get a general list going of who wants to go. That would be next year. Okay, moving things along.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. August 16th is the deadline for submitting photos for the calendar. This is a project we're collaborating with Bloomfield Open Space Foundation. So,
The 9 o'clock thing on?
yeah, 19. So if you're thinking about it, please do send them in. And next month is our renewal for our Zoom membership, so we're gonna pass the hat. To ask for donations to pay for our annual Zoom membership. And it's actually an envelope, but that's our hat. So we'll pass that around, and it's the city doesn't allow us to collect dues.
The Zoom this year, if we renew it without any discounts, will be $160. And I'm looking to see, now this month, there was a 15% discount for a renewal. We can't get, that ends the 24th, so I don't know what will be available for August. Now, last year, we were able to get a little bit off, but it changes year to year.
We'll try to get a discount, but it's around
160.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary?
Yeah.
Last year I missed out because just changed banks. So count me in. Phil, I'll talk to you, but I'll do a Venmo or a Zelle and I'll send you $50.
Oh, wow, big spender. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Well, I'm a pretty big beneficiary of this Zoom thing. I really do appreciate it. So I don't mind.
All right, thank you.
Our presenter next month is member Andrew Smith, hopefully, in a while. I'll contact him. And let's see, good memo, you have an announcement?
This is small enough, Steve. And I just remind you that the BCC allowed us to have inspection wall for 3 months. And they have to come down next month, so the buyers. And this meeting, we're going to do August 29th, which is a Friday, and at 6:30. And we have no longer give it a day or day next to the third day. So I will also be at a camera review meeting. I won't be here to help you, so but it'll be August 29th at 6:30. That's what it really had fun and stuff, but.
They come down a lot easier than they go up.
Yeah, that's a lot of this.
It's the clear penalties that you leave your photo. I believe it. Okay. I want to talk about Google Head, you want to wait for the.
I'll wait for it, time.
All right, tonight, we're gonna have member Felix Cook unveil our new common logo. So with that, all right. Did we get in the way? Okay. This has been, what is it, feel like, making now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get a little bit of a background. When I go into this, it's on the project, before I think of the game, but I think that it's always one before the baseball, right? So, I think it's take that one already as photographers, but there's a lot of it was designed too, so. One of the things that we did. We've been talking about, hey, what do we want people to feel after that and interact with the work on? And so, our experience with it, but also with what we want to share, with others too. And, coming to the club that like, I think we're 13 or so. People don't really understand it, and when they get back to you. They're pretty much gratitude level, they're pretty much, this will. Working like collaborative sound observable, these are the things that we aim to be at the club. And the experiences with us. In that way. Beautiful. Beautiful. We want to be a type of whole. When you see them bigger. Okay. This is where it's connecting to the This is brutal total. And
See on a lot of the print things, on things that you see with gallery shows, things like that, postcards, informational brochures that go out about the club. But logos have to live in multiple places. So we do have a couple of other different options that we're going to use alongside that one. So of course, the stacked vertical option, but also a little bit of this badge that could be used for kind of some swag, which we'll get to later. But one of the things that we noticed as we were building out this badge is that we're coming up on our 40th year anniversary as a club. It started in 1986 as the Rocky Flats Camera Club, and then eventually morphed to the Broomfield Photo Club. So we were thinking, we need to do something to kind of commemorate this and celebrate it. So here's our 40-year badge. We're going to start some celebrations for that in November, leading through the 2026 year. So you'll be seeing this around more. But you're kind of wondering, where am I going to be seeing this? Where is this going to live? Because we're primarily either online or in this room, not a lot of print things. Glad you asked. Because we're not making any promises, but there's a potential for using the 40-year logo and the badge logo on T-shirts, just to keep track of each other on field trips and whatnot. And then we also have a few other options, maybe updating our style for the gallery cards. So we have just a very polished look there, and also something that links the photography on the wall back to the organization and the people behind it too. One of the things I like to think of with the logo is that it's that punctuation at the end of any experience with the organization. So this is what people as an opportunity to remember the Broomfield Photo Club by. So that continues on over to the Facebook page too, updating the presence across there. I think of anything branding and marketing as an exercise in memory. So our goal is to just have this be at any touch point that people have with the club, so that they memorize what the Broomfield Photography Club looks like. So some other ideas too. Of course, we just heard about the White Sands adventure. And we're going to need to figure out transportation for that. So there's that's a favorite question. And Bob is always asking me about, have I done any more car composites of recent? There's my most recent car composite, Bob. So several times. So bring it a little bit more down to earth. This is a potential for some of those things like the Nature Fest or where we're volunteering in the community, and it builds credibility both for us, but then also trust with the people that we're photographing to say, okay, this is a legitimate photographer, not just somebody running around with their camera. And then also, a potential for some lanyards that are branded with the photo club logo and the 40-year badge there as well. So those are the ideas. And I think the only thing really left to do is to welcome you to the photo club.
Thank you, Caleb. Great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
And we do have swag up here too. So you guys are more than welcome to take a few minutes and come grab some stickers. We've got some buttons as well. And if you're not a sticker person, you can feel free to grab a button that you might put on your jacket. So
Grab some swag.
yeah.
He's my neighbor.
Yeah, I was like the color. I saw that white.
Your mom, that's what I thought.
Go in the middle of August, it'll be busy, but hopefully of August will be good.
Relative.
Yeah.
Well, because the.
I bet there's a video of Amy
Yeah.
Yeah. Holding on to the t-shirt. Hold on to the truck.
Here on this all.
Say genre and escapes macro. So do portrait photography as well as concert and event photography. When Phil had contacted me, he mentioned that the theme for this month was going to be people. So I figured out of all that, concert might be the least touched on with the club. I'll start with a little history of myself. I moved here, I landed here in 1995 because of music. I was one of those ne'er-do-wells traveling around the country with the Grateful Dead and was offered a free ticket to see the Allman Brothers at Red Rocks at the very last Grateful Dead shows in Chicago. So I took the offer and that the rest is history. I wasn't a photographer when I moved out here. I didn't get into photography until years later. But if you want to go ahead and start that, you can.
Sure.
Like I said, just maybe every 20 seconds or so, flip the images. I just compiled quite a handful there. So I didn't really get into, I wasn't a photographer, as a growing up. My grandfather was a very avid amateur photographer. My father was the very avid family picture taker. So I was never really that motivated to get involved. I was kind of immersed in it too much, if you will. But in the early 2000s, when the point and shoot cameras became a thing, I started playing around and kind of envisioned myself as the concert photographer for my friends and taking the camera up as close as I could get to the front and taking photos and coming back with lots of blur and but eventually in 2007, I bought my first DSLR, started to learn there. It did take another couple years until I decided to break free of the automatic modes, automatic settings. And I was at a music festival with a friend of mine who was a very avid amateur photographer. And we spent some time throughout the weekend going over some basics of manual photography. And I continued shooting as that with that. And that kind of inspired me to really start to dive in. I took some classes, and just kind of got after it as much as I possibly could and just got out and used the camera as much as I could. And then a few years later, I got involved. I reconnected with a dear friend who was also an amateur photographer, and very much a mentor in my life. And he encouraged me to kind of step up my game with gear. He saw the potential of where I was headed with what I had to work with. And I started to upgrade from there. And next thing you know, I was reaching out. This was actually this was that music festival that I was at, learning. And my background, professionally speaking, has always been in food and beverage. And for the better part of the last 25 years, I've been a bartender. I also, one of the bars that I managed was booking music. So between living in the area of Nederland and Boulder County and along the Front Range with an amazing music scene, as well as booking music, I started to have a lot of ins with musicians and bands and that sort of thing, and friends that were in bands that would ask me to come out with the gear and practice. And so getting started, it was kind of an easy in, if you will. A lot of venues back then, and it's still kind of that way with some smaller venues. But you didn't need to get photo passes and stuff like that through the venue. If you were okay with the band, it was okay to just show up. And so I did that for a while. And then in 2013, I reached out to friends of mine. I don't know, some of you might be familiar with the band, Yonder Mountain String Band. I've been friends with those guys from when they first moved to Nederland back in the late 90s. And I reached out to them, and they allowed me my first photo pass at Red Rocks, just to come and try my hand at it. And after that, I did some work with some other local smaller bands, doing album work and just coming out to shoot some live shows with those guys. And then in 2015, I got my foot in the door. I should interject before I get there. In 2013, the same time, right about literally the same time I shot that show at Red Rocks, I was invited to become the official photographer for our local music festival, NedFest, which started in '98 and lasted until 2018. And then, like I said, after reaching out, having been a longtime fan, I had some friends in the band family of the String Cheese Incident who had reached out to their people and kind of put me in contact with their archivist, who started getting me photo passes for them, and just kind of worked my way into that scene as far as a photographer. And so the rest is pretty much history. It's an interesting field of work. It's definitely a lot of fun. It can certainly be stressful at times. But in terms of, I figured I would go from the history to the basics of gear. I personally started out, like I said, with a lot of learner material. There's obviously the philosophies of work with what you got, or go straight for the best possible gear. And obviously the best possible gear is pretty pricey. But the key things you're looking for are fast glass and good sensors. I did not necessarily start out with either, but was still able to kind of work my way into things. And you know, my kit, because I've always kind of been so multi-genre oriented, I've always tried to keep my personal kit flexible in terms of what I use the lenses for and that sort of thing. So I never necessarily dove straight into the fast glass. For many years, I used like on the low end, a 4.5 aperture is considered slow in the concert world, but it obviously works. But ideally, that's the main combination as you're looking for. In terms of the work itself, it's pretty fast paced. So you kind of have to work your eye into being able to work out compositions quickly and that sort of thing. But you also have to realize that for as much pizzazz as you might see on with light shows and that sort of thing, the majority of the work is considered very low light photography. So the only thing that would really be different from a technical aspect in terms of the actual shooting itself is just a much higher ISO. Otherwise, exposure triangles all pretty much the same.
So what are you talking ISO?
Well, honestly, nowadays, for a long time, I was shooting with the 5D Mark III, which always in the grand scheme of concert photography cameras, wasn't necessarily the greatest. The sensor wasn't that great for low light. There was definitely better technology out there. But that said, not a huge fan of noise, so I would usually keep it between 1600 and 2500. I now shoot with both that and the R5. I gifted my business the R5 2 Christmases ago. And between the sensor on the R5 and the greatly improved noise reduction technology in post-production, I can now go through even all my old stuff and reprocess and get a much nicer, or at least to myself, a much nicer image out of everything.
Yeah.
But nowadays I will sometimes jump almost straight to 6500 or on the R5, and I use the 5D now mainly with my wide angle lens. And I've done as much as 12,000.
Wow.
And it works out. It still has some issues for sure. This is some of my older stuff from Fox Theater. Gypsy Moon was some friends of mine, and also friends with Vince Herman. I don't know if you're familiar with Leftover Salmon. Friend and neighbor, and his son was in the band.
So I was gonna ask, they're moving constantly, so you can't shoot too slow or you're just gonna be all blurred all the time.
Exactly.
So what speed do you shoot at that?
You know what, a lot of that's really kind of gonna vary depending on the lighting of the particular subject. If it's a big stage, I can be as high as 1/600. Again, it kind of also depends on the time of day. Nighttime shooting with just concert lights, 150 to 200 is about a safe range. I have done one of the shots that I'll show you, I was able to pull off at Red Rocks. You might notice as the photo, as we go through the photos, I started around 2016 playing around with stitched panoramas of live action. It's interesting, the technology again on the post-processing end has gotten good enough that it can notice differentiation somewhat of the movement of people and will compensate from image to image when it stacks, using its own AI, if you will, to mitigate as much of that in terms of movement and weird things. And inevitably, you're always going to end up with somebody's head getting cut off or something. So it does take a little work putting the photo back together, putting someone's head back on. But I think that I'll point it out, that shot was like 1/50th, which was shocking when I actually looked at it because I wasn't necessarily paying attention to the shutter speed when I took it. It was just a very quick pan. But concert photography really kind of varies in terms, especially obviously it's people in general when you're dealing with the bands. But one thing that a lot of bands like to see, aside from just the band shots, is their fans. So you've got the band shooting itself as well as working the crowd. And then I always like to try to get shots of other photographers, whether they're friends of mine or not, just because we're always on the other side of the lens. So it's rare that we get our own photos taken. I also like to try to focus on shots of the crew and the techs, everybody else that's kind of involved with String Cheese Incident. This gentleman has been their longtime guitar tech, and for a few years he had his son coming out on the road and on local shows, learning the tricks of the trade. Again, this is another one of those stitched panoramas.
So how do you deal with white balance? And you set that on automatic and fix it in post-processing?
Generally, yes. Yeah. When I'm shooting a show, it's most ideal because you're never really gonna know what the specific show is gonna be like on a given night, unless you're working with the same band all the time and know exactly. It is, exactly. So in general, auto is, unless I know I'm gonna be in a daytime setting for a while, where I can mess around with it that way. For the most part, auto is the safe bet, especially when you get into just working with the stage and the band and whatnot. Some bands, light shows vary. Obviously with a more hippie style psychedelic band, there's a lot more color and whatnot. But in general, it's just a safe bet to keep it in auto and let the camera do the work and figure it out at the end.
In your black and whites, are you just doing a conversion in post?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, it's too much. A lot of times, you just don't have the time to make those changes. There's a few different ways you can go about getting access. The most coveted would be working for the bands and or the venues themselves. In which case you are generally given all access for the entire show. Most other access outside of that is your standard press pass, whatever. With String Cheese Incident, I was never photographing for any publications, which the vast majority of bands out there, that's a requirement. They won't even respond to your email if you're not shooting for someone else. They want to make sure that the images are going to get out to as wide an audience as possible. So with those kinds of passes, if it's just a press pass, or for myself, like with String Cheese, it's just a friends of the band guest list kind of pass. The typical industry standard is you're given anywhere from either 3 songs to 5 to 15 minutes in the photo pit, if there is a photo pit. Sometimes there's no photo pit and you might get that same time allotment just from the soundboard. And rock stars being rock stars and rockstar management being what it is, a lot of times you won't even know that you've been approved until sometimes the day of the event. You might show up and find out that when you thought you were going to be up front, you're now going to be at the soundboard. So you kind of have to be prepared with a couple different lenses to compensate. But like I said, because of that, a lot of times you really got to plan on speed. You don't have a lot of time to get your material. And it's not like they want a lot. Typically, they're only looking for anywhere from 8 to 15 images. And, they're going to want that quick. That's another aspect. A lot of times nowadays, especially with social media, they want at least a handful of images edited that same night. So you're getting home and you're editing. I've seen some guys nowadays with the technology available, they airdrop photos directly to a pad, edit at the show, and send it to management while the show is still happening. So the technology has definitely grown in that realm. But like I said, especially with band like the String Cheese Incident, and we have a lot of colorful fans, so it's makes for some great eye candy. But for the most part, you know, a lot of times, some bands, once that time allotment's up, in my experience, I've never shot a show where that was all I was allowed. Those time allotments, I've only been forced to shoot at a soundboard once, but we were given the whole show to shoot. But in most cases, in my experience, you're able to shoot from anywhere inside the venue after that. You just can't be right up front. They don't want you distracting the fans and getting in the fans' way, and being, especially at a place like Red Rocks, because that is the photo pit. So you're forced to kneel on concrete. Anybody ever gets a pass there, bring knee pads. It's only 15 minutes, but it's not the most fun. And then from there, you just kind of get to wander and be creative and have fun. Obviously, and especially the place like Red Rocks, it can be challenging to shoot the band itself outside of, you know, wide shots and that sort of thing. This gentleman, some of you may know if you've attended shows at Red Rocks, he is the artist in residence, also a very dear friend. He does live painting, obviously, of the music and whatnot. So he's always fun to go visit and get photos of. But, you know, there's always something to take photos of. There's always something to get creative with. Again, like I said, I like to try to get true shots as much as I can. I also had the pleasure of bartending at our new-ish music venue in Netherlands, the Caribou Room. The owner is a friend of mine, and while he didn't want to hire a photographer per se, as a bartender, when I was able to sneak out, I often brought my gear, just try to get a few shots of the band. And nowadays that I don't work there, I still get free access, just bringing the camera and having fun, because it's just free advertising for them. But yeah, so it's a lot of just once, if you have the time allotment to get out there, once that time frame's out, it's fun to just kind of wander around and get after it and meet people, and people love getting their photos taken. So those people in that kind of a scene. And again, like I said, this scene's kind of a very open to color and eye candy, and so that's kind of the gist of the work. Does anybody have any questions, or?
This processing, do you typically use, what product or software?
So I'm mainly Adobe, mostly Lightroom. Not as with concert stuff, I don't necessarily need to play as much with Photoshop. Lightroom does most of the legwork that I need. There's not much similar to just basic journalistic photography. There's not a lot of, I mean, obviously it's art. So if you're not shooting specifically for a publication or whatever, you can do whatever you want with the images. That said, I try to keep it as true to what I saw as possible. I don't get into a lot of things like object removal and that sort of thing. Try to leave it as much as is. Once in a great while, if there's something off to the side that I find really distracting, I'll just get rid of it. But for the most part, I don't really need Photoshop for anything huge. It's another example of needing the stitching of images when you have 45 people on stage.
So how would you compare daylight shooting to nighttime shooting?
How do you mean?
Well, I saw those images of Red Rocks that were taken during the day.
Uh-huh.
And how do you compare doing those to doing things in
Much easier. No, just a lot more light, obviously, so that makes for an easier approach to it all.
but you get some really interesting lights with the dark. 'Cause you
Oh,
get
absolutely.
everything in the background is dark and just the face and the people are lighted.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, that kind of varies on whether or not there's a light show. You know, obviously with the band like the String Cheese Incident, they do have a pretty extensive light design department, if you will. Not quite as extensive today as used to be. We are definitely blessed with some spectacular music venues. That's Dillon Amphitheater. So that alone provides enough natural eye candy. Sunsets at Red Rocks, thunderstorms out over Denver from Red Rocks. It's all.
Focus settings do you use?
What's that?
What focus settings? Do you spot meter or what?
Yep.
You do?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What's your typical lenses that you use?
So ideally, it's gonna vary from venue to venue and how much space you have to work with. For something like Red Rocks, I always keep, I'm now using two bodies, so I'm not switching lenses or, you know, hot swapping in the middle of trying to be in the pit. I did that for many years and was still able to pull off what you needed to, but I like a wide angle, at least having a wide angle.
Is that a wide angle?
Yes, yes. I like having a wide. Fisheye is obviously another very popular go-to. I don't personally own a fisheye to date. But it definitely, it's not used a lot. So it's kind of one of those that you're always going to swap out. One of the industry standard lenses for pit shooting is the 70 to 200 2.8. Again, you're looking for that fast class as fast as you can.
Yeah.
I shot I didn't have that to start for many years. My main go-to for telephoto and using that for both concert and wildlife was the Canon 100 to 400. But that one's only 4.5 to 5.6. When I bought the R5, I realized I was going to have to upgrade the autofocus on the 100 to 400 decided to die right after I bought the R5. So, and unfortunately, I was the first gen, and which came out in 2000. And in calling Canon, they said, "Yeah, we don't service that lens. It's over 20 years old."
I've got one that's just been serviced if you want to buy it.
You know, since I bought the R5, I decided to just dive in and start diversifying for the wildlife stuff. I bought the 100 to 500, and then I bought the RF 70 to 200. I will say though, for Red Rocks, I've certainly used the 100 to 500. The sad part about that is, and part of why I've jumped as high up as 6500 ISO, is because at 500 millimeters, you're at 7.1. So you're losing a lot of light, a lot of light. As you can see, String Cheese Incident puts on like visual production for big events, special events. But in general, it's a lot of fun getting out there, getting after it. Like I said, just getting creative. You know, it's varies from band to band. I've shot a lot of bluegrass over the years. Bluegrass is not the most, can be very non-exciting in terms of photography when you have four gentlemen just standing in the same place, same light all night. This is another interesting one. This is actually a 5-frame stitch, something like that. And it's in this particular shot, vertical, just because you're trying to cover as much ground as possible with as little time as possible. So you want as minimal movement and as minimal frames. But something like the panorama that I did, that was shown earlier of the Red Rocks from the top, that had to be horizontal. just to capture all the full rocks as much as possible. And even that 14 millimeters was just barely. And obviously, the weather can be a huge factor. That's a storm that came in back in 2018, 19, I believe. And they decided to turn the lasers on for us and put a roof on Red Rocks.
Wow.
It's cool. What's that? Talks about it. I've never invested in Topaz. I always just stuck with what was inherent in Lightroom, and now what's inherent in Lightroom has gotten really good. So it's interesting with concert work. I have yet to shoot much in the way of huge names. But in my experience and talking to other music photographers, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Lisa Siciliano. She's a good friend of mine, and I've been to a number of her shows and whatnot, and it's interesting. Unless they're really, really big names, I've maybe sold in all my years, 2 prints total. It's just not that huge of a draw unless it's somebody massively well known and iconic, and I just have not had that opportunity yet. In my experience, from what I heard, from what I've understood from a legal standpoint, again, I don't even know actually that's one of those, this show was shot at 12,000 for the entire show in ISO. But I don't know if you're familiar with the historic Gold Hill Inn, very small room, tiny little tungsten lights for the entire stage. So, but no, in terms of selling prints, suppose I've heard people throw around the idea that you're technically only legally in the industry allowed to sell up to 250 numbered prints of any one image. Again, I don't know the strict legal basis behind that. There are certainly some restrictions. Generally, you're with a lot of bands nowadays, most bands nowadays, you're signing contracts that kind of spell those kind of things out. A lot of which require no sale whatsoever. But that's going to depend on from band to band.
The band made that print song.
Well, technically, unless you sign your rights away, which sadly has become somewhat common with a lot of bigger bands, they are starting to try to demand rights to all of the images. But in general, unless you sign the contract, you as the photographer still retain all rights no matter what. Now, if there are, like I said, there are specific clauses sometimes that say you are not allowed to print, but you can use images for your own portfolio, social media, website, that kind of thing. You just can't sell the print if you sign the contract. But for example, when I was photographing Nedfest, or I was also for a few years the photographer for Frozen Dead Guy Days, some of you are familiar with that. In those kinds of situations, I was under no contract whatsoever. I was also friends with the event organizers, so they never tried to claim any rights because I was working for them, which technically in a lot of cases, when you are working for someone else or some venue, a lot of times the venue will try to retain the rights. But for the most part, I've always retained the rights to 99.9% of my images. Outside of the specific contract clauses that say I'm not allowed to sell. And even some of those I've been allowed to cross out parts of the contract and hand it in before I hand it in. But again, it's one of those things that I've never known anyone to make a lot of money off of.
Yeah, no, understanding, I love the photos. My question was more from the line, say, process, post-process. Or a fine print versus a social media.
Honestly, I've not had to deal with that too much, just because I haven't had the requests for it. What, certain But actually, as anyone in the industry, any aspect of the industry will request, if not demand, once you get good enough, it's time to start charging. Because sadly, the industry has been all over the place, has been greatly dumbed down by just too many people working for free. In every aspect of photography.
When they make requests to like image that night,
What's that?
when they're making requests like send this something by this time, we hope that they're paying.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So I'm curious how you navigated that transition from doing the pro bono work to doing the paperwork. And if there's any.
It depends. I mean, I will still go out just for fun.
Sure.
A lot of times, not a lot of times, but I'll still go out for fun. And like I said, shoot at the local venue just to get out and play a little bit. Sometimes if I just want to do something different. Like I said, I do a lot of nature stuff. Nature is my biggest genre by far that I shoot. So if I haven't shot any concerts in a while and just want to get out and have fun, sometimes there's a band that I want to see and want to take photos of, I'll just go up. And like I said, I've been friends with the owner for 30 years and he said he's always been like that. If you ever bring a camera, you're in for failure. So there's that kind of trade-off, and obviously something like that, if the band is interested, in a situation like that, I'll request licensing fees and that sort of thing, if they wanted to use the images and whatnot. But for the most part, in terms of, I don't do as much concept photography nowadays because it's tough, I see having been friends with band members, having booked bands for a number of years. It's one of those tough give and takes because the vast majority of bands that exist out there are small and up and coming, and just like the rest of us, don't have a budget. Starving artists like everyone. So it's sometimes you kind of make a compromise with them in terms of usage and versus pay and whatnot. But it's a lot of give and take. I've got a few bands. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the mostly female lineup, the Sweet Lilies, that have been kind of up and coming for a few years now. I've shot for them before, a handful of the smaller Netherlands bands and whatnot. But it's tough. It's definitely a highly competitive market, because obviously with that kind of thing, everybody wants to get the rock stars.
Did I miss any of your images with that in?
Nope, that was it.
Fantastic.
All right, well, thank you, James. I want to say James is also an amazing wildlife photographer. So search for him on Facebook, and just about every day you post. wildlife.
Nowadays, it's mainly Monday through Friday. Once in a while, I'll jump in on a weekend.
Yeah.
Myself, I have a love-hate relationship with social media. So
As we all do.
I try to take a break if I can. Sometimes I get something that I just gotta share.
He's got amazing wildlife photos on Facebook, so check it out. Thank you. Gonna take a short break and then we'll come back and view member photos.
Good job.
Lights.
Lights.
Others photography.
Thing I was gonna ask you about,
Interesting.
okay,
No, I saw
deno-
my grandson plays.
Dick.
So,
denoise,
so, lot, is blind.
I can use that, but yeah, I do.
And you don't have one.
Right. So try to work with that. Yeah. They seem to. Plus the fact that I have to buy that suite that I photo. You can't buy it. You get it like it's fun with sharpen and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah, I know. And cheese to the diet.
So it will get you on everything. So.
I use the age.
Yeah.
So it's a little long in the tooth.
Yeah.
You just like
So since I already have the DXO and I have on one, I'll use the. Be happy with that and forget to pass. Whenever, okay,
Next fall.
next fall, August. Yeah, you're right, Yeah, no.
Learn through them first, maybe.
Okay. Oh, look at this.
I'll be back here. This is Bill's.
There's a little sticker.
I'm gonna put a sticker on mine, absolutely.
Stan is one of my favorites, all-time favorites. He's holding on his banjo, this is what I'm moving. Just because especially with concert, you just don't have the time to get in there and fit it with all the settings and you get those, take shots at that. Yeah.
Let's ask if he's here. I'll write his name down. Bob Adelson. I've got both these pictures there. Okay. Good. Edelman. That is it. Give me Stevenson. It's all in.
Yeah. That's up to the reader
Like big nature from the But
Really, what's the fun? You want to go home? Normally you see it right.
How's the spirit of the right to see them?
Okay, here you go. Okay, this is a picture I took at the Brookville Days last September. Talking about people, it's a perfect venue for all sorts of people photography. And I have committed that we will photograph the Brookville Days again this year. It's going to be on September 20th, which is a Saturday. And we'll be working on the clown contest, parade, the auto show, for the 10K run, and anything else that we see that looks photogenic. Particularly one I missed last year that you saw was the one on the dogs, the bow wow.
Well, the dog.
Yeah, the dog jumping into water.
In the water, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So my point is that my 3 photos tonight are from Broomfield Days a year ago, and it's a month away, so I will have a sign-up sheet that I will pass out to everybody next month, and I'll have more information. But I'll try and get organized enough so that we can cover all our bases and not have to work too hard. It's a long day if you try to do it all yourself.
You get tags this year.
Pardon?
You'll get photographer tags.
That's what we're gonna get them made up. We will. Okay. This is Carolyn.
Yeah, so this is up in Leadville. There's actually a circuit of ski jogging at different mountain town locations, and we were normal skiing that weekend, and just, you know, after skiing, like, what are we gonna do, right? So found that this was going on and had my DSLR and just did a lot of different shots and different angles. I chose this one because of obviously the dynamic action of the horse, but I like the fence with all the different spectators. You got your skiers, you got the cowboys, so it's this really nice diversity of people that come together for
This is Sharon.
Hi, this is mine. I thought it would be appropriate since we were going to talk about White Sands tonight. So I asked my granddaughters and my daughter-in-law to go over for a little impromptu photo shoot at White Sands. And so this was taken about a little over 2 weeks ago.
They stood still.
Genealogy thing. The lady on the left is my mother. The one on the right is my sister, who was 6 years older than I was. And I was on the end of a Kodak waist level camera taking this picture.
Oh,
Right.
when was that, Joe? What year was this, John?
What year was it, John?
Pardon?
What year?
I I think my mother was about 60 years old. And if you notice that my sister is about 3 or 4 inches taller than my mother.
John Reed. Yeah. Okay.
Gary, we're not getting any sound online.
Since. I don't know what else to say. I just don't have a clue. I touched nothing.
Now you're back on.
I have no idea why. that makes no sense. Anyway,
Gary, I
I'm
think
happy.
I think on the right, on your share options, there's a share sound checkbox. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it should have been there anyhow.
Yeah.
All right, let's see, where was I at? Here we go. All right.
Are you still there now?
Here we go. Now, decided that-
The street photography, like I'll do architecture and things, but this guy just had this great look and I pointed at my camera and he smiled and I took advantage of it.
Hey, Gary, I'm not getting the picture now. I just have a white screen with the folders.
Try, what do you see now?
White screen with assigned open and special folders. Your
All right.
desktop.
All right, hold on.
So you're sharing the wrong thing, maybe?
And
Yeah,
now the sound is working good when I unmuted mine. So I don't know, maybe that's on my end.
that could have been. All right, let me see why.
Go to Zoom, see what you're sharing.
Yeah. Open. it. All right. What's this one? Which is the application? No, that's not. That's not. Hold on. I see what I did. Hold on. So now. Now. Dwight,
Sound doesn't work either.
that's nuts.
Oh, yeah, I got your back now. Now I see the screen with all of the photos displayed.
Okay.
Now
I have
you're on
no idea what, there we go.
a sign.
Back to this, here we go. We'll go back and start with this. I think this is where you left off.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right. Okay, so, Rachel,
Thanks.
yeah, well, so like, as I said, it's street photography on the Pearl Street Mall on a beautiful summer afternoon, and so we made eye contact and he smiled and said, go ahead. So I took his photo and I liked the reflection, and actually it was pretty busy in the cafe behind him, and so I just
all right.
darkened that part. I don't use Lightroom, but I use a different software where you can do that.
Oh,
This is
Like
for
that.
Mecca.
So Sir, Bill Mackey, and the Milky Way. We were texting back and forth about trying to get a night shoot going at the end of last month. Then we went up into the Alpine tundra and shot all kinds of landscapes and panoramas and had great luck with weather. And on our way down, we saw the stars, hanging over these rocks, and we both said to each other, like, "Man, if only we had time to stop." And right after saying that, we realized we have literally nothing but time to do that. So he was a good sport and posed. And I think he did a great job. This was like a 20-second exposure, I think, and he held his position as long as he could. And we got some good shots.
Nice.
took care of that one. Here we go. Carl.
Okay.
Hi, this is another portrait at White Sands. This is my oldest granddaughter. I'm not getting any audio again, so I don't know what's going on.
So next month I'll change it.
Okay, you're coming through now. This is about off the roadway, about 100 yards in to get the sand with no footprints.
To go and you're walking through a field, saw this bird land on the weed, and he just posed for us ever so nicely. What a beautiful bird. It's called a blue grosbeak. Jake Clark again.
I like.
Callahan, Colorado. Those monoliths right now have already disappeared because this originally was taken in the late sixties in a farmer's yard near the town of Calhan. And what it is, it's clay that the Indians from Colorado Springs came up to get for their clay pots. And with the weather, these two monoliths are down flat. If you're down there now, or if anybody even knows where the paint mines are at Callahan. And I just decided to put it into black and white instead of the color.
It worked. This is John Reed.
This one really got me when I got this one to post process.
It's from Middle Ages. It was a great exhibit.
Thought it looked better, black and white. So,
To different angles and a bunch of different focal lengths. And then I liked this one where I got lower and the peonies in the front, I made them black to make it, they're red. but I made the red channel black to, or dark, to get kind of a gothic feel to it with those eyes staring down and some of the reflection in the windows. It's a pretty unusual place. Just these couple of blocks, this is the most unusual house, and the rest have gorgeous gardens and really unusual older architecture.
This is Rebecca again, who's still not here.
Still not here, this is still the same market, Lafayette.
For the calendar.
Yeah, send in photos for the calendar.
So, when are those all due, Bill?
August 16th is the
August
due date.
16th. What is the name for?